Stormy day today. We're in a break, so I'm filming quickly. Agnes has had an anxiety pill. She's sleeping. Winnie's had an anxiety pill, sleeping. Both have thunder shirts on. Cat is fine. I'm all good. Let's go. Hi, readers. It's Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper. Today, and Then We Were Murdered series continues. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite authors that I have been collecting for a while, and I can't possibly tell you how many novels he's written because I tried to count and I gave up. It just was overwhelming. But this author that we're going to talk about today is Anthony Horowitz. I have been a fan of Anthony Horowitz for a number of years now. Probably in around 2016 or so, I discovered who Anthony Horowitz was in the authorship area, but I did know that he was a screenwriter, and I had watched some things that he had written, and I think he helped produce some of them as well. So he's a playwright, he's a screenwriter, and he's an author of some mystery series as well as some middle grade books. Lots and lots of things that this man has written, including some Sherlock Holmes novels and some James Bond novels. So let's talk about how this happened. So Anthony Horowitz was born in England. And he was raised there. He's Jewish, and he and his parents lived in, I think, Sussex. His father passed away at a young age. He was in his 20s of cancer. So he was raised by his mother for a good part of his life. His mom actually introduced him to Frankenstein and Dracula at a young age, and he really enjoyed those books. And it's reported that she also gave him a human skull as a birthday present when he was 13. So he probably had a fairly mysterious, macabre kind of life with his parents. But he also says that he knew at a very young age that he was going to be an author. He was going to write. He started writing at an early age, and he really enjoyed it. So he writes adventurous mystery thrillers and a little bit of fantasy. So he's quite an eclectic writer, as you will see from the things that he's written. And he grew up wanting to be an author, and he succeeded. So he's written a number of screenplays. If you're a PBS watcher. So here's some of his television background. He began writing for television in the 1980s, and he's written a number of things. But the things that I think you would know the most are the Hercule Poirot series, the Agatha Christie Poirot series that started in the 90s. He also wrote a series called Murder Most Horrid, which was funny, and The Last Englishman, which starred Jim Broadbent, and I love Jim Broadbent in anything, but I've never seen that before. He did some screenplays for the series Midsummer Murders, which is one that I really, really love and still watch. There's so many episodes of that, I can't probably ever finish it in a timely way. But he wrote just in the early days of that, so he didn't write the entire series for sure. And then he wrote and created the series Foyle's War, which was a detective series as well, and it is a very good one. I haven't completed that one either. And then he did adapt one of the books that we're going to talk about today into a little mini series as well. So I think that's how I found him. If I look back on this, I think it was because I saw that he had created that series, and then I wanted to read the books that were a part of that. But it may be that I found the books first and then the series came out. I honestly can't remember, and I don't think it matters. But he's been married for a long time. His wife is also a screenwriter and has worked on some shows that he's written, and they have 2 sons, and he is 70 years old. So definitely this guy is prolific, and he's not giving up, right? So let's start with my favorite one of this authors, and that is the Susan Ryland series. So I have 2 of them here. The first one is Magpie Murders. I read this around the time that it came out, was published. And again, I can't remember which happened first, but this one came out in 2017. And I absolutely fell in love with Susan Ryland. She's an editor. And in this particular first novel, the author that she edits for, who is a very curmudgeon-y kind of unlikable guy, is found dead. And the question is, was he killed or was he committing suicide? But it appears as though he was killed, and Susan Ryland kind of unwittingly takes up this case because it is about her, one of her bosses, essentially. He is a person that she's worked for a long time. So in this particular series, what happens is, and I suspect it will happen throughout, is that there's a book within a book. So you have the story of Susan Ryland and her dead author. And then you also have the story of Atticus Pund, who is a fictional character that her dead author has created and written about for a number of years. So he's kind of like an Agatha Christie-esque writer, or like an Anthony Horowitz writer. He's written a number of novels. He's, continued to write in the same crime genre. So this is very meta. And that's what made me really love this, in addition to the fact that I love Susan Ryland. And I love when a woman solves a mystery, because there are, if you think about it, a lot of detective novels, a lot of mystery novels are solved by men, but I love that this one is not. I remember exactly where I was when I read most of this. My granddaughter has in the past done some dance, and she had a dance team that she was on, and they went competitions all over the state and sometimes other places too. And I was at a dance competition, which, if you've ever sat through a dance competition, it is an all-day event, and there's a lot of people that dance, and you don't know who a lot of those people are. So you stop reading when your people come on and dance, right? When she would come on and dance, and when her team would come on and dance. So that's what I remember doing. I remember devouring this. I loved it. And for that reason, I went on to read Moonflower Murders. So this one focuses on her moving to a Greek island with her boyfriend, Andreas. And I'm not going to give away a whole lot about that relationship, but it does start in book 1 and it continues in book 2 and book 3. I think I haven't read book 3 yet. And, but she is on this island, and somebody is killed on this island, and she's there and works with the detective to try to solve the case. Meanwhile, there is also another Atticus Pund in this one as well. There's a novel within a novel, and the Atticus Pund in this one is Atticus Pund Takes the Case. And Alan Conway is the name of the guy who died in book 1. Okay, so book 2 is Moonflower Murders, and then book 3 comes out on May 13th, and that is Marble Hall Murders. And that one is again about a murder, and Susan Ryland is showing up in some way, but the synopsis of that is very vague, and I think it's possible that it's very vague because it looks like Marble Hall Murders is the last in this series, which kind of breaks my heart, because again, this one was my favorite. I love the other one I'm going to talk about, but this one definitely has stood out for me as the one that I can't stop waiting for. So that will be in my mailbox in a little less than a week from today when I'm filming this. And I can't wait. I just can't wait. So let's talk about the other series. I'm going to stack these up in front of me so I can, you're going to see them. Let me stack them down here. So the first one in the Hawthorne and Horowitz series, I always say Horowitz first, but because Hawthorne is kind of unlikable, let's just say. But the Hawthorne and Horowitz series, The Word is Murder. This is book 1. I have this one in paperback. I may have to fix that because the others I have are in hardback and it bothers me a little, but not terribly. So this is about two men. Hawthorne, who is a detective, and he has been for a number of years, and he's very egotistical and somewhat unlikable and demanding. And he thinks a lot of himself and his skills as a detective. And he approaches Anthony Horowitz, who's playing himself in these books, real life. He approaches Horowitz and asks if he will help write his memoir about his life as a detective. And in order to do that, he wants Horowitz to shadow him while he is being a detective and, of course, interview him along the way. Horowitz agrees, but then also he kind of gets sucked into this murder that occurs in this particular book. And he starts to notice that he's asking questions and he's considering things, and I'm not sure that Horowitz appreciates that. So he finds himself at the center of this story, and this one has some surprises, some things you wouldn't necessarily expect, and I really, really enjoyed it. And so because I really, really enjoyed it, I went on to read The Sentence is Death, which came out a little bit later. And again, I have this one in hardcover. This one came out in 2019. He writes them pretty quickly, generally, but because he's writing numerous series at the same time, that must be tricky, but he must write all the day. This one is also one of my favorites. This one is about a very expensive bottle of wine and an attorney who records something on his cassette player, and the wine is out, and it looks like he was going to have the very, very expensive wine, and he's found dead. And so the question is, who did this and why? And there's lots of characters, and some of them are really relatable and some of them are not. And I really enjoyed this one a lot. And I think I read this, it wasn't terribly long ago, but it was a while ago. I think what makes these great is they're twisty, but they're very well developed. Then the third one is A Line to Kill. And this one came out in 2021, so there was a little bit of a break there. So I'm not going to spoil what happens to Horowitz and Hawthorne necessarily along the way, but they're both invited to a literary festival on an island, and when they get there, they have this kind of obnoxious guy that nobody likes that's attending, and he's disruptive and, again, just wild and kind of out there in your face, and he's killed. So they have to figure out what happened to him. Then the next one is The Twist of a Knife. I love this. Mind Game was a play that he wrote, I think, and that's what this ticket says, is Mind Game. So Anthony Horowitz wrote that play. Again, not going to spoil anything, but this new play, Mind Game, which is a real life thing, opens at the Vaudeville Theater in the West End, and Hawthorne doesn't necessarily want to go to that play, and it's not doing well, and Anthony has a situation where he's a suspect in this book. So that's all I'm going to tell you about that one. And then the last one that's currently released is Close to Death. Yeah, they're all very, very interesting. And this one came out in 2024, so this would still be a backlist for me. And I do plan to read some of these this year. So this one is a quiet, gated community, and a guy moves in with his wife, and he's also obnoxious and loud, and the neighbors don't like him. And are they going to eliminate him? I don't know, but there's a pen, a feather pen and a pen. Yeah. Interesting. So is that how he's killed? I don't know. A pen through the neck? I mean, I've seen that happen before in movies and things. So yeah. Now let's talk a little bit about his middle grade work. He has written Alex Rider, is one of his more famous novels. They're about a 14-year-old kid who's running around doing some things to, save the world probably, or to investigate. The Power of Five and The Diamond Brothers. Those are very, very lengthy series, and they're very popular amongst young people. Then he's also written, as I said, Foyle's War, which he adapted into a miniseries on BBC and PBS. He's written The House of Silk, which includes 2 Sherlock Holmes novels. One is called Moriarty, and the other one is called, oh goodness, let me see. Let me look it up. House of Silk, The House of Silk, that's what it's called. So The House of Silk was published in 2011, and Moriarty was published in 2014. And then he's also been commissioned by Ian Fleming to write a couple of James Bond novels, which is not usually something that Ian Fleming and his group of people who support his work would have done. So he's the only person who's ever been commissioned to write an Ian Fleming James Bond novel. And I think he wrote 2 of those as well. So he's really one of the most prolific authors you can even imagine. If you were to read his entire backlist, it would probably take you all year. And I am not going to do that, but I am prioritizing a number of these. I'm looking forward to getting the third one of this series for sure. And then I'm looking forward to going to book 3 in this series. And I like to, there is a part of me that hoards books, as you know, and buys books way before I need them. But also for me, having the hardcover option is really important because I love the way these are designed. But also, I like to have them ahead so that if I read one and I want to go right away to the second one, I can, or the next one, I can. But I also sometimes take a break, between authors. And so I have had a bit of a break from Anthony Horowitz. It's time to get back there. I will say that we also still watch, as I said, a lot of his adaptations. They're very, very good. So if you want to pair these with the adaptation after, these are very, very good. I went in the other room the other day in what we call the studio, and my partner was painting and drawing and watching these. And that's one of the places I used to watch them too, is when I would scrapbook, I would turn on the Susan Ryland series or the Midsummer Murder series. So the question may be coming up for you, are these cozies? I would say no. And here's why. Cozies are a little bit less graphic about the murders, although none of these are like super graphic. You're going to be repulsed by reading them for sure. They're not horrifying. But cozies are often, just a little bit lighter in the sense of the tone, as well as the detective is usually a regular person who may own a tea shop or a coffee shop or may have nothing to do with murders at all. Bookstores, right? Like they're usually unwilling detectives in a sense, but this is actually a very strong police procedural detective novel with a sidekick. What I like about these is the relationships and the person and the character. They're very well developed. You get to know them pretty well. You understand some of their backstory. You understand what makes them show up in the way that they're showing up. And again, with Horowitz, you're sort of living his real life experience through some of these books. So that's quite sort of entertaining and also very meta, I should say. I was definitely mentioning their meta in this case too, but these are too, because this is a real guy that's the character in a book with a fictional guy. So I just think it's clever. They keep you engrossed in the plot, and I love that as well. And they're very, very well done. They're very well written. So I highly recommend these for you to take a look. So thanks for joining me on And Then They Were Murdered today. I would love to know if you have read this author, who is your favorite character, which books are your favorites. If you haven't, let me know if you think that this will be a series that works for you. And then also, if you'd like me to talk about other books and other detectives on this series, do let me know about them. It may be that I have not ever read anything by them, so it may be that you are a guest on And Then They Were Murdered, and we talk about the series and what you like about it. I don't know, but I'm open to all of the talk about all the ways in which you have been connected to murder mysteries and police procedurals. So I can't wait to hear from you about that. And as always, happy reading. Bye.